In this series, Herd Strategies President Denise Herd connects with industry leaders and community members to discuss the challenges they face within their fields. Join us bi-weekly to learn all about how they see us.
Well, hello, and welcome back to How They See Us. I'm your host, Denise Herd, and I'm really glad that you're here with me today. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you so much for coming back and keeping this conversation going. On this show, we talk about perception, who gets to shape it, who benefits from it, and what happens when the story being told about us is not the full truth. Today, we're digging into something that's been showing up in school board meetings, in library policies, and headlines across the country, and that's restrictions on books. And I find that this topic is so relevant because it's February and it's Black History Month. And we're seeing a silencing of artistry, of narratives, of stories. And so, what we want to talk about is what's underneath all of that. Because when certain stories are labeled as dangerous or divisive, what's really being challenged is Black creativity. What's really being challenged is Black history. What's really being challenged is Black speech. And our historical truth and our voices will not be silenced. So, what I wanted to do is, I wanted to bring today a person to have a conversation with who knows exactly what it means to protect access to information and what it costs when that access becomes politicized. So I brought in Nichelle M. Hayes. Many of you all know her. She is fierce in this area. She previously worked for a local urban library and is currently serving as the executive director of the Hurston Wright Foundation, driving its mission to discover, mentor, and honor Black writers. Nichelle has consistently been a strong voice for access, literacy, and the protection of spaces where Black stories can live and be celebrated. So I am grateful to give her a voice behind this necessary conversation. Nichelle, thank you so much for joining us. Before we jump into this very, very important conversation, I want you to talk a little bit about yourself and share a little bit about your background for those that may not know.
Thank you so much, Denise. I am honored that you invited me on your podcast to talk to your audience. This is always a topic that I'm ready, willing, and able to discuss at any time. So, I am a third generation Hoosier. Born and raised on the east side of Indianapolis. I'm an East Sider for life. Um, I went to Arlington High School. Um, Proud to be a Golden Knight. And for middle school, I went to St. Andrew Parochial School. So I'm also a Charger for life. And so those things grounded me and really helped me to be who I am. I am Nichelle Marie, the daughter of Sylvia Marie, the daughter of Anna Mae, the daughter of Anna Neal, the daughter of Gilly, the daughter of Manda. And so when I come, I don't come alone. I bring all of them with me. And so that is my maternal line. And because of them, I am. And I made a post on Facebook this week and I posted my mother, my aunt Eleanor, and my grandmother. And because of those three women and them pouring into me and loving me unconditionally, I can go out in the world and do anything. Because when people love you for who you are, you move different. So I would be remiss if I did not speak their name.
Thank you so much. And thank you for introducing us to your family and giving us a peek behind the curtain of all the shoulders that you stand upon and the legacy that you are now holding in your hand and that you're responsible for. So because that is shaping who you are as a woman. and as an individual.
Absolutely. And on the professional side, I am an information professional, also known as a librarian. I also have a background in human resources. So I've got a master's degree in library science and human resources. I have a thirst and a love for literature. I'm also a sci-fi geek. So that's who I am as a person. Yeah.
You're and you know what, to me, Nichelle, you're a unicorn, but because to see a Black person with a degree in library sciences, few and far between. I have a girlfriend that I went to undergraduate school with that is a librarian as well. She's down in Atlanta. And I always tell her, like, you're my unicorn. You know, you're my unicorn. But I know when I was in grad school, I looked constantly for librarians that looked like me to help me with
Mm,
my research. So thank you for what you've done, and thank you for making the decision to enter into an area where you don't see a lot of us. So thank you. Thank you for
thank
that.
you. Thank you.
So I have a ton of questions. So I
Okay,
hope
let's
I can
go.
even get to half of them because I'm so excited to be with you. But I want to talk about the topic of banned books because it is something that just, what do they say, that irks my craw. It just made like to ban a book, like words on a piece of paper. Let me ask you, when people hear about banned books or they want books banned, what is it that they are misunderstanding about what's actually happening? You know, we hear about banned books, but it's bigger than that.
Mhm.
It's not just about the act of banning a book. I want you to talk about what's really happening behind that and what's the bigger story.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right. What is the bigger story? Because what I say all the time is that if you walk into a bookstore or if you walk into a library, no one is forcing a book on you. They have books on displays, they have books on the shelves. You might go to the librarian and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this," or "I like this person. Might you suggest something?" But never is anyone forcing a book on you. So if there's a book that you don't like or you're not interested in, you can feel free to walk past. And so for me, I'm never going to read anything on World War II. There's nothing wrong with World War II, but it's just not what I'm going to read. Now, if you've got some science fiction books, I'm going to run over there and I'm going to take all of them. But that's just what I want to read. But what we have with book banning is it is very insidious. First of all, they're trying to chill the sharing of that information. And even beyond banning books, what they're doing is they're actually threatening to arrest librarians for sharing information that they don't necessarily believe in.
What law has been broken by a librarian checking out books or directing people to books on a shelf?
Right. So there's no law that has been broken. So what they're trying to say with many books, let's say The Bluest Eye, uh, let's say, Their Eyes Are Watching God, The Color Purple, those kind of things. They're trying to say that this is pornographic. They're trying to say that it's sexual. When we know that that's just one component of the larger literary piece. And so what they're trying to do is to tamp that down so you won't even put up the display, so that you won't even buy the book. And what is really happening is we want to rewrite history. We want to say that everything has been roses, it's all just daisies and flowers. But we know that America was founded on the backs of enslaved Africans. We
Right,
were brought
right.
here against our will. We worked without compensation. Our families were ripped apart. Our culture was taken from us. Now, obviously, we know that there were some free people of color, but that was a very, very, very small percentage. And
Right.
so, book banning is very insidious. The whole point of it is to have that chilling effect.
Mhm.
And let me also say that
Mm.
a parent or a guardian has the right, the ability to determine what their
R
children will read. No
exactly.
one says anything against that. So if you want to go into the library and take your child in there and say, no, we're going to read this, we're going to read that, that is your right as a parent. And no one is standing against that. However, my children my nieces and nephews, they have the right to read and see whatever it is that we want them to see. And so you can't take that away from us because you're quote unquote trying to shield your child. And as an adult, I have the ability to read anything I want.
Right. It's interesting. You triggered a memory for me when what you were just talking about, because when I was a kid, I was a voracious reader. But not only did I read a lot, Nichelle, I went to a lot of movies as well, because that was a great place for me to escape. And I remember I was maybe a tween. I was maybe 12,
Mhm.
possibly 13, and there was a movie theater right down the street from where I grew up. And so I would ride my bicycle or I would walk. And my that's back in the day when you could let your children do these things, however.
Exactly.
So that was always my weekend adventure. I would go to the movies. And of course, my parents would ask, "What are you going to go see?" And I would tell them. I remember I wanted to go see Gone with the Wind. And
Mm,
my parents said no. They were like, "Not yet.
mm.
Not yet, but no." And they were adamant that I could not, and I could not understand
Yes.
why they did not want me to see Gone with the Wind, and there were so many reasons, but I remember that, and so that was like my first encounter with like adult guidance in what my mind was able to wrap itself around
Mhm.
with respect to literature per se. And so, but I do remember my mother vividly saying word for word, "Not yet. You can see it, but just not now." And I think that's where the parental guidance comes into effect, that maybe it's not now, but later, but to just say no and take it off the shelves altogether, it is really a silencing that we need, that is an unprecedented silencing that we're witnessing. I do have another question though, keeping in this same line of conversation about banned books, because I'm also hearing about restrictions on books. Like, some books are restricted. And so can you explain like what's the difference between restrictions on books and book banning? Or is there a difference?
So they're cousins, I would say.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
definitely on the
Okay.
same tree. So a book banning, and people have been trying to ban books forever. So what it's called is a challenge. You see a book, you don't like the book, and every library has a procedure for a challenge. There's a form you fill out, you tell them why you feel like this should not be here, et cetera, et cetera. There's a procedure, a rubric. They'll come back to you and they'll say what they're saying. But what we have now is a targeted process where people are flooding for these book bans. And so they might not have even read the book, but they've gotten an email and the email has said, go and, ban this book in your area because it says this and it says that. And so then there's this huge onslaught. And so restriction, what that is doing is putting something in a different section so that an individual cannot access it. But here's what I would encourage. If there is a book that you feel that your child, your niece, your nephew, someone in your family, a younger person wants to read and you don't think they're ready for it, read it with them
Oh, what a great
and and
idea.
have that discussion and talk about it, because oftentimes when you say something can't be seen, it becomes that more enjoyable, and you really want to get to it because they said don't see it. When we're fasting, oh man, and that's when we really want the things that we aren't supposed to eat. And so what I would encourage is to people to read those books with younger people and with other people as well. And also audiobooks are a great option if you don't quote unquote have time to read. You can do that while you're washing dishes, while you're working out and things like that.
I think what is frustrating though, and I agree, like half the time when people are saying, "I don't want my child to do this," or I don't want them to be exposed to this, or this book shouldn't be on the shelf. Chances are it's like the herd mentality that, someone told you and someone else, and then everyone's kind of herding together and forming an opinion.
Mhm.
And so, and like what you said, which does make sense, read it with your child. But we have people now, and you and I know people in our world right now whose response would be, "I'm not gonna read that." And then but it's up to us to challenge them and say, "Well, why not?" Based
Right.
on what are you making that decision that you're not going to read that? And so
Mhm.
I think that those of us that really know the depth and understand the harm that's being done to really push back harder to do like what it is that you're saying, reading together. That's why I miss that's what not I miss, but I that's why I think things like book clubs and reading with someone and having those conversations is just so important because we sometimes we do need help to get through a book. We
And let me say that there are still book clubs here in Indianapolis. The Go On Girl Book Club, we have several of those chapters in Indiana. We have the Literary Society. I didn't get the whole name for that, but they've been around for about 100 years. So there are definitely book clubs, and you could start a book club tomorrow with your friends and your family. And so what I think is very important for us is that we have to encourage intellectual curiosity. And so what that means is that we hear something, we see something, and we want to learn a little bit more about it. And so you don't necessarily have to have a certain level of education to do that. You just need to be intellectually curious. And libraries are free. You have paid into that with your tax dollars. So you can go and you can access that information. You can request books, they can do interlibrary loans. So I would encourage people to go to the library. And we don't see people accessing that enough because we are mesmerized by social media.
yeah, yeah, that could be a whole nother podcast, a whole nother
It
conversation.
could be.
I want to shift gears just a little bit because we are having this conversation because it is Black History Month. What kinds of Black stories tend to get challenged, and why are those particular stories being challenged?
So there are a lot of books that are being challenged. The 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah Jones. I spoke about that before. That is being challenged, and it's being challenged because it's a reframing of America. We're celebrating the 250th anniversary of our country. And so people are saying, oh, 1776, that was the beginning. But 1619 takes it to a different level, a different perspective. And so it's not an erasure, it's an addition. Stamped from the Beginning by Dr. Ibram Kendi. Very powerful book. And the great thing about that book and the 1619 Project is they have it for adults, they have it for young adults, and they have it for children. So there are things on different levels that might make it easier or quicker for you to read. So I would encourage that. The Bluest Eye is something that has been banned for a long time. The Color Purple by Alice Walker. And so what we have that connects those things is that it is centering Black life, Black culture, Black thought. And it doesn't give a rosy picture of that. It tells the unvarnished truth. And people do not want that unvarnished truth. They want to say that everything is fine, that we're all equal. We've had the civil rights movement, we've had a Black president, so we're post racial now. We have no problems and kumbaya. And that is not, that's nothing could be further from the truth. A lot of books are being banned that talk about queer subjects, two moms, two dads. And so there's definitely a push against that. And I would say again, maybe that's not your family, but there definitely could be another family. And so everyone wants to see themselves represented. And again, if you don't like that book, if you don't want that book, you can merely just walk past it and it's not hurting anyone else.
I think what's interesting about some of the titles that you just spoke of is that these are books that, like, I read in high school. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Mhm.
That was like my first book. It was one of the first books I ever read by a Black author, and I was
Mm,
so moved by her storytelling and her narration, and it actually opened up like another passion of mine when it came to my reading, which I was already so passionate about as a
mhm.
kid. And so I just think, when we don't allow our children to have these opportunities to engage with authors that look like them, we're we're shuttering them. We're we're denying them. We're ignoring who they are. And so
We're inhibiting their ability to grow. And again,
exactly.
if you're concerned about the subject matter, sit down and
Mhm.
read it with your child.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And we have to
What
take that time. We have to take
right.
that time. And if you can't do that, then trust that your teachers and that your school system has vetted and looked at these things and determined that they are something that is worthwhile and something for us to read. But oftentimes people want to just kind of shut us away from everything. I don't want them to know about that. I don't want them to know about that, which is
Mhm.
fascinating because most kids have a cell phone.
Which exposes them to everything, stuff that you don't even know they're looking at, in all honesty.
You
So
said it, I didn't, Denise, but
I'm just
I'm with
saying,
you when you're right.
I'm just saying, like I'm just, I have nephews, I've hopped on their phones and clutched my pearls a couple times. So yeah, so I totally get what you're talking about. And I guess my thing also is that you see like leaders and these advocacy groups that are saying that we can't tell those stories, that's not an accurate depiction of history, take those books off the shelf. But they're doing that because they are seeking a certain outcome. My question of you, Nichelle, because you are versed in this space, what is the data telling us? Are these groups and these people that are challenging Black authors or authors that, write in the LGBTQIA plus the queer space, are they seeing the outcomes that they were hoping they would achieve? Or are there no outcomes or goals that they've set? They're just saying, if it doesn't look like me and it doesn't look like my experience as an American, then it's not non-existent.
What I would say is that the war is not over. We've had several skirmishes and several battles, but the war is not over. And so some people have been affected by this. Librarians have lost their jobs because they put up a display. And so what they're trying to do is to have a chilling effect across the board. But the fight is not over. And so I'm a member of the Black Caucus of the American Library Association, as well as the American Library Association. And we had a rally against banned books in Washington, D.C. And we had Dr. Ibram Kendi there. We had Jason Reynolds. It was an amazing, amazing jam packed session. And we went outside and we actually marched and sang and protested. And we have to get people excited about the ability to read whatever they want to read. And so, what I would say is that the war is not over and they have not won. And they're not going to win as long as we continue to fight back, because the First Amendment gives us wide protection for people to write, publish, and read books. Now, you can always challenge a book, but you can't wholesale take that away from everything, from everyone. And what I would say is the agenda, for lack of a better phrase, is to whitewash America. There are individuals in our country who want to say that only one kind of person is an American. And so my family has been here for 8 generations that I can trace. I am fully American, but someone else might look at me and say, well, you're not American because you are not Caucasian. You're not what I am. But we know that's not true. And so we have to fight back on that at all times.
I want to bring it back down to the work that you do and the work that you've kind of dedicated your life to with respect to your working within the library space. And what role do libraries and schools and communities play in the Black History Month beyond the February celebration? We talked about this a bit before we started this conversation. We talked about, I'm not Black just during February. I'm Black 365 days of the year.
365,
And
absolutely.
then the times that I'm not acting like I'm Black, somebody's always quick to remind me that I'm Black by doing something they shouldn't have been doing to me anyway. So I can't ever escape it. It's always on me, with me, around me. It's who I am. And so, what can these entities do beyond the February celebration? And what has to change?
Mhm.
for these individuals or entities not to feel pressured into falling into the, well, I don't want to say anything, that silence narrative?
Mhm. So that's a great question. So, BCALA, in conjunction with the University of Michigan, did a study on Black History Month with libraries and what kind of programming they did throughout the year. And what I will say is that February is kind of our appetizer. It's kind of to get your palate going and kind of taste some things, but then to continue that throughout the year. So ASALA, the Association for the Study of African American Life of History, and I'm vice president of the local branch, the Joseph Taylor branch, they created Black History Month. It was Black History Week, and then it became Black History Month. And so this is the 100th celebration of Black History Month. And so what we've done this year is we're looking back over the last 100 years at those different themes because every year has a theme. And so the answer to the question is that we don't just do this during Black History Month. We don't just put things down about civil rights. We look at all of the books. We especially look at books for young people. We look at programming. We reach out to organizations in the community and say, let us open up our doors to you and host you in our space. And so when I worked at one of the urban libraries here in the city, I did that. I reached out to organizations and I let them have different events in my space, and that really opened it up. And when we had the opening for that grand area that I created, people came up to me and they said, I have never felt welcomed in this way in this library. These people came to me and said that unaided and unprodded. And so I felt like we were really doing something important. So people have to get out of the library, they have to realize what's going on in their community, and they have to reach out to those organizations and say, won't you come? What would you like to do? I'm not just going to do a knitting project because that's what I think everybody wants to do. I'm actually going to tap into the community and see what they want. And so June is Black Music Month. Focus on that. March is Women's History Month. You can focus on women. Like it just goes on and on and on. We've got to expand beyond February. And what we have to do as taxpayers is we've got to tell people what we want to see. So we've got to write some emails, we've got to make some calls and say, this is what I want to see.
Write some emails and make some calls because you triggered something in my mind. I thought about something when you were talking, because in that urban library that you worked with, I've been in that space and it is very, very welcoming, and it looks like me. And so when I visit, I that's where I usually park. And I think that what some institutions forget, it's not just about the books, it's the total experience.
Mhm.
It's from the minute I park my car or get off the bus and walk in your doors, it's how I'm greeted. I may not know how to use the library, so it's how the
Mhm.
person at the information desk treats me when I ask my question. It's how the librarian treats me when I'm trying to look for what I'm looking for. It's the snacks at the snack bar. It's the events and activities that take place within the building. It's
Mhm.
everything. It's every single thing. It's everything from the big library to my neighborhood library. Do I see myself? And if
Yeah.
I see myself, then I know it'll make me more comfortable to ask the questions about finding the stories that look and sound like me.
Absolutely, and it's so important for us to see ourselves represented, as staff members, and I would say that's also something that you can write your library about and say, "I don't see myself represented. What is your plan to fully represent our community?" Uh, Black Americans in Indianapolis are 30% of the population. And so we should be seen in those spaces. And let me say very quickly that the space that you were alluding to, something that we focused on was mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. And so mirrors for you to see yourself reflected. Windows, if you weren't a part of that culture, for you to step into that. And then sliding doors for you to go into something that you've never experienced before. And so that is a term that was coined by Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop. And she is a professor emeritus at The Ohio State University. And so always got to think about that as we're doing
Mhm.
this work.
I absolutely, absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you for dropping that pearl of wisdom to all of us. I'm getting a signal that we are going to have to wrap up soon, but I mean, you touched on it earlier, but I want to be very intentional about getting some information from you because I want you to tell anyone that is listening, what should they do? What are three concrete steps that someone can take like within the next 30 days, to protect access to Black stories and to defend historical truth?
One step is to reach out to your local library and talk to them about books and subjects that you want. It's called a request for purchase. You can do that online. You can send an email. Yeah, you can go into your branch and you can mention that and have them write that down. So, request for purchase, because there is a process. They only have a certain amount of money for budgeting. But definitely, if people are requesting a book and there are multiple requests, there's going to be more of a chance that they're going to pick that up. Another thing is to support your local library. Actually go and check out a book, or you can do something digitally or an audio book online. Very easy to do. I would also encourage you to purchase a book. Purchase a book, read it, get your favorite book and share it with a younger member of your family and maybe have a discussion and talk about this is why I really like this book. What do you think about it? And see what differences you would have as you read it earlier and maybe what you see now and maybe what they see because their experience is so much different. Also, encourage publishers to publish Black books because we do not have a lot of Black books being published. And I would be remiss by saying that hurstonwright.org, which is our website, feel free to go to our website and you will see award-winning books. If you're trying to find really high quality books, that's one place where you would go. There's some amazing, amazing artists. And this is the time when artists do work, when they push against what is happening and they really show who we are in all of our facets.
As always, thank you for listening to How They See Us. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow Herd Strategies on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to stay updated on future episodes. Don't forget to visit our website at herdstrategies.com to subscribe to our monthly newsletter filled with PR insights, episode recaps, and updates on the work we're doing in the community. Until next time, take care and talk soon.